So I lean on sort of quite a few philosophers who are also practitioners as well. So they didn't sort of just design theory and philosophy, but they were also practitioners. And I think that's really important. That's almost kind of what you're saying, is to be able to sort of practice what you know and sort of grow in sort of that exercise. And people that I lean on are, for example, Frantz Fanon, Ivan Illich, Paulo Freire, Walter Rodney, James Baldwin. When I look at sort of what do we really mean by education, and if you sort of read some of their work, a lot of them, they're incredibly critical of sort of the education system as we understand it, mainstream education. And, one of my favorites is Paulo Freire, when he talks about that there is no neutrality in education. So you're either there to teach people to become complacent or compliant, but you're not there for sort of this idea of empowerment or human flourishing. And you have, for example, Frantz Fanon, that talks about sort of education as being a system to be able to keep people oppressed. And he, one a really, I think, key quote that he talks about, he says, this type of education system was used to hold the colonized people in its grip, and for squeezing their brain in all forms and content, and even destroying their identity. And so I think we're not critical enough of sort of what our education system is actually there to do, particularly sort of why it was designed. And I think it's really important to define education within sort of these different lenses. And so you talk about consumption of education, we talk about the external knowledge, right, which is sort of this external exercise. But then when you contrast this with ancient wisdom, what it is, it's a really sort of sophisticated system of an internal of sort of an internal application. You see this with sort of yoga, for example. And I think what lies at the heart of ancient wisdom is to understand yourself. If you look at Hinduism, if you look at Buddhism, if you look at sort of ancient Mayanism, it's the same sort of themes emerge as, who am I really? What is my essence? Where do I come from? And so it's much broader within sort of these sort of big questions of sort of existentialism and, purpose and fulfillment, and these ideas of sort of gratitude and mindfulness and being present in the moment and living. And so I think when you begin with the internal and then you interact with external knowledge, it's a completely different shift in the way that you then think, process, because what you have then is the development of independent thought and critical thinking. And we don't have that in our education system. Largely what we have are people repeating. And what happens is there is no creativity in that. There aren't any new approaches coming on, because mainstream education is all about this idea of universality. So we're creating everything the same, the same standards, and we're not the same. And I think as an academic, I don't sit on the equality space. I sit on the empowerment space. And it's not to say that I don't believe in equal opportunities for people. And I think that's really important for me to get out there. But I don't believe that people should be the same. I believe that what we need to do is really drive that empowerment element. Or if you don't like the word empowerment, then let's call it human flourishing. And I think within human flourishing, you'll never have equality, but you'll have this incredible creativity. And so that's where I think that our education system is really strangling potential, because we all have to do the same tests, and we need to learn the same modules, and we need to, pass the same exams. And what makes me tick won't be what makes the other person tick. But then there's something that I'm bringing in and with a different perspective that perhaps, you're looking at it from a different angle. And when we're talking about inclusivity, diversity, which is sort of hugely important, then we sort of bring in equality. And I think the way that mainstream systems have then applied equality, I think it's actually, I don't think it's very helpful.